To begin, my name's Charles Jernigan. I work for Bona. I'm a technical and training specialist. I've been with Bona for 4 years, and that's actually the extent of my flooring knowledge, right? What I lack for in regular flooring knowledge, I make up for in bad jokes and my Bona product knowledge itself, okay? If you ever call the tech line, you'll probably be speaking with me or one of my colleagues for sure. My helper today is the Messiah of flooring, Michael Dittmer. Really good guy. We're gonna show you guys a couple things, but before we get going, underneath you guys is one of my business cards. After this presentation, you guys, the first 18 people to take a business card over to the Bona booth, 1012, I believe, actually is going to get either a trammel point set or a Coast flashlight. Is that correct? So a little incentive for you guys to just come by, stop by, and talk with us and hang out, okay? All right, so let's get rolling here. We're gonna show you guys 2.5 things. That's kind of weird, right? Three or two, which one is it? Mike and I already prepared the Traffic HD Raw, and so you're not gonna see it applied, but that is 2 coats of it on top of a clear sealer. So there's that on from your left to my right.
Wait, let's lift it up and show the
audience. Okay, yeah, let's lift it up, yeah.
Let's lift it up. So I'll hold it and you can talk about it.
Okay. So Bona Traffic HD Raw is our one of our newest finishes. Okay, it's gonna go on, it's gonna dry clear, has all the benefits of Traffic HD, right? So it's gonna be coverage rate of 350 to 400 square feet. It's gonna be one of the most durable finishes on the market. And it's nice and matte, right around a 0.4, 0.5 on the sheen scale there, or 4 or 5% on the sheen scale there. And it really is nice. As you can see, it lays just, I mean, flat and as clean as can be. When I'm showing it at schools, I'll actually, and I don't recommend this on a job, I'll put my handprint in it just to show the leveling and flowing properties of it, to show you guys how well it actually levels and flows out. Okay, so that's the Bona Traffic HD Raw. Just a little extra treat for you guys, along with the red out and the diamond sanding discs. This next panel here, Mike and I had already prepared the Bona red out, and then we left about 1/3 of the panel untouched, okay? So on this bottom part of the panel, you wanna lift it up?
Yeah.
On the bottom part of the panel here, you'll see the Bona red out has already been applied, part 1 and 2. It's a 2-step process, which we'll get into later. And then up here, it has not been touched at all. So we kind of left that there for you guys to see the true difference of what it does versus what it was. Okay? Perfect. Need help with it?
Yeah.
Okay. On this panel right here, it's just red out. It's just red oak, sorry. Nothing's been touched, nothing's been done to it. We're actually going to apply that right in front of you guys here today. And then over here to my left, we have some pre-finished flooring, and we're going to demonstrate our Bona diamond sanding discs, okay? I will get into the Bona red out. There's like a 10 to 15 minute period in between part 1 and part 2 that we must wait. During that, I'll get into it way more in depth in terms of technically sound and things like that, okay? All right, so Bona red out part is a 2-part process. It's a 2-part waterborne neutralizer made to neutralize the pink tannins in wood, right? Red oak and even other species for that matter. Really solid, great industry fix, I should say. How many of you guys have been asked by a homeowner, I love my floors, man, I don't like that pink in the red oak though. I just want a natural look. Yeah, I mean everybody, right? I don't even do floors and I get asked that 3 times a week, so I fully understand that. So this was our answer to that. It's a two-part process. One thing to note is that when Mike's putting this down, you don't want to use your part 1 applicators for part 2 and don't want to use your part 2 applicators for part 1. You definitely want it to be separated. Mike, if you want to
I'll begin the process.
Throwing it down. something to think about is that it is a waterborne product, right? And that's kind of the consistency of it. So that being said, I like to have my cut-in person cut in about 6 to 8 inches from the wall, just to prevent any, you know, possible splashing or anything that might occur. Oh yeah, PPE. PPE is a huge thing, especially for myself. As all of Bona knows, I'm like, oh, it's waterborne. We don't need gloves. We don't need. I have these. Or if I don't have these, I can't even see you guys. And so I started doing the process without gloves. I was in New Jersey, and hands just kind of felt a little tingly, kind of like a light allergic reaction. And then I started kind of turning like Mike a little bit. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll think about throwing on some gloves. No, that last part's just a joke. But you should wear your gloves and your glasses, because it can get a little tingly. It won't change your skin colors from what we've seen. Mike's going to shake it. What's unique about this is it has a vented top, okay? So keep that in mind while you are preparing it and shaking it, so you're not shaking it over any, you know, carpet or anything like that. Make sure you're shaking it only over the surface that you're using it on. And see that white color? Make sure when you dip your roller in there, you're kind of mixing it up, just constantly keeping the minerals and sediment in there mixed up and kind of all uniform before the sediment drips to the bottom. So I'll let Mike put this on here. Does anyone have any questions about Bona Red Out?
Yeah, I got a quick question.
Where are we at?
You said those jugs are vented, so if it sits on its side, is it going to leak?
It could. The tops are vented. I wouldn't recommend sitting it on the side, anything like that. I just, best practice, keep it straight up.
Yeah, just in the back of a van if it fell over or something.
Yeah, and there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee, but this is part 2. We'll do part 1 here. It's like it's not vented hard, but it is vented. And so because I come from the technical side, I'd rather tell you that right now.
Sure. Well, that's good to know.
Definitely. His question, everybody, was if it sits in like on its side or upside down in the van, is that okay? Really best practice to make sure you keep that straight up and down, okay? Any other questions, guys? Sir?
With, obviously rolling is the main application.
Yes, sir.
Walls, do you brush on or use an applicator?
Yeah, like a cut-in pad, we found works best. Question was, obviously, Mike is rolling. Is that the best application? Then against the wall, do we recommend anything different? I said like a cut-in pad tends to work really, really well, okay? So we always talk about, sorry.
Can you T-bar it?
We don't recommend T-barring it, no sir. So we always say in this industry, do not watch finishes dry. We say that, we beat it down. This stuff, do not watch it dry. When I'm not traveling around, I take consumer calls and contractor calls, and all the time after part A goes down, they're like, oh, man, what's going on? What did you guys do to my floor? I'm like, hey, give it 15 to 20 minutes and everything will level out and it's gonna look nice. After that part 2 goes on, it's a neutralizer, and it really does start to just fine out and look like what you want to start applying on. So.
I'll lift it up so the audience can see.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yes, I got it.
Yeah, so strong. So you can see those darker boards kind of coming through a little bit. Lighter boards almost getting overly light. Kind of a grayish there. It's all gonna be gone once that part 2 goes on there. Everything will be just fine. Sir.
So it looks like there's a little bit of a lighter area. How important is it to get everything spread?
Even application? Yeah. He asked down here near the bottom, it kind of looks like a little bit lighter. How important is it to do an even application? You really should attempt to get it as even as possible. Just, hey, you guys are getting paid, and we want y'all to get paid. But also because we don't want any indiscrepancies major on the floor, sir.
In a bigger room, for example.
Yes, sir.
You start on one side.
Yes, sir.
You go back on the other side. That's any problem if you overlap?
Yeah. So you're asking if you can overlap?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's already dry. They were reapply the lines?
Yeah, just a small little portion. He asked if you're working in 2 different rooms or a big room, do you overlap? Yeah, you just want to kind of overlap maybe 2 inches, 2-3 inches. Just kind of like a light overlap, and you're ready to go with the rest of the section that you're doing.
And if you're doing a big space, it might be a good idea to tape a line across a board. So tape it all the way across the room, do that section, come back, pull your tape up, do your next section, and if it's multiple sections, just tape it along a board if you're worried about how it's going to dry in the space. Okay, and then that's best practice. Also remember, this is a corrosive product, and so we recommend to make sure that you as any floor finish job, you're going to pay attention to where you're going to walk off at. So you don't want any of that product to go on anybody's carpet or tile or stone, as well as fireplace hearth. You want to pay attention to make sure you tape that off, and you exercise caution with that, or tape up against the carpet, because we don't want any contamination and have some sort of a reaction happen to another substance in the home. So we need to make sure that we're cognizant of the fact that it's a reactive, and it's going to have a reaction with other things that may come in contact with. So we want to be safe and do best practice as a contractor.
Hey Mike, do you want to lift this up one more time?
What?
A sprayer? No, we do not recommend it being sprayed on the floor.
This one up again?
Yeah, I'm gonna have Mike lift this up again so you guys can truly see, why you may think about calling Charles after you put Part A on. You can see the discoloration there. Don't worry about it. It's all good. Sir, you're good. Thank you.
He works like a water pot. Raise the grain.
One more time.
Yeah, raise the grain like a water pot.
Yep. So exactly that. So the red out process, he asked if it water pops it. The red out process does water pop the floor. If you wanna abrade it, you can just use a maroon pad, or even one of the 1-inch red pads. That's perfectly fine. If you wait too long, so it's a 10 to 15 minute wait between part 1 and part 2. If you end up getting waiting too long so it's all dry, then you might get like a chalky, hazy look. If that happens, again, it's all good. You'll just want to attack it with some damp microfiber cloth and continue your process. But to knock down the grain, yeah, that's perfectly fine.
And so we're talking about water pop. As a contractor's thinking, this will serve the same purpose in the same time, a little bit more time as a water pop. So as you're bidding that job, you can think, hey, I can upsell this with red out to help take the peak of the red oak floor, and I'm going to save that water pop step. So I'm going to kind of save myself some time, and I can think about that when I'm pricing that job, because essentially you're water popping the floor when you're doing this process. So you're kind of, in the back end, you're kind of saving that water pop process as well. So you have that to think about too.
Awesome. The stain, I'm sorry, sir? Yeah, you can stain it. It'll be just like a water pop stain on like a white oakish look, right? Something to think about. If it's great for lacing in, right? If you're just doing a quick fix, it's great for lacing in. What's really unique about red out itself is that you can actually add water to dilute it. Maybe the effect's too much it's just a tad bit of pink in that red oak. Or you can also do 2 applications of it to really maximize the intensification of red out itself, okay?
And while he mentioned about the lacing in, we just had I had a contractor call last week that they came in and refinished somebody's pre-finished floor. And when they came in, that pre-finished floor looked like the existing white oak floors that were in the house. When they sanded it off, they realized that pre-finished floor was a red oak, white oak mix. So in order to create greater continuity in that pre-finished floor that they refinished, that was red oak and white oak, they treated it with the red out, and that minimized some of the pink in that red oak, and helped that red oak and white oak to look a little bit more neutral and a little more fluid, so that it matched the existing white oak floors in the house. So that's another opportunity to use the red out to help to minimize that color variation in a red oak and white oak floor. I would recommend to sample it out beforehand, just to make sure that it's going to have the same reaction.
Sir.
When you said applying it 2 times to get the max effect, right?
Correct.
But A and B,
Correct.
like the whole process.
Yep. So you'll do part 1 and part 2, and ideally after you apply part 2, you need to wait 12 hours. If you're doing 2 applications, you can do part 1, part 2, wait 30 minutes, an hour, and then do that exact same process. And then after the second part 2, that's when you'll want to wait overnight. He asked if you're applying if you're doing 2 applications of it, do you do both part A and part 1 and part 2 twice? And you do. Yes, you do. Any other questions, sir?
Does it go? Can you send it off?
One more time.
Does it go in the wood? Can it be sent
Yeah,
off?
it definitely can be sanded off. You could do your normal sanding process. We've really found an 80 blue of our paper will knock it right on out. So.
And that's where it's a little bit different from the traditional bleaching process, where the typical bleaching process was much more corrosive to the wood, where this is much more of a topical application, and so that's why it's easily removable by like an 80 grit blue. So that for some reason, the customer decides to change the color in that space, it's easy to reverse the process that way.
Correct. So between part 1 and part 2, like I said, about 10 to 15 minutes. You definitely do want to apply part 2 if you can, while part 1 is still damp. Now that being said, you don't want any puddles on the floor when you're applying part 2. You get some major discoloration if you do that. But I think you have a timer on? Okay, cool. We got a timer on, so we're good. Any other questions regarding red out right now?
I got another one.
Yes, sir.
You're saying it's okay to make a sample of that on the floor? If they go a different color,
Yeah.
you can just buzz that off the floor?
Of course. Yes, sir.
I would say best practice, I would do a 2x2 just as a best practice, because I wouldn't want to put anything that's irreversible on the customer's floors, just to be on the safe side of things. And that's just me, safety first. I don't want to commit myself to this on the customer's house. That's all.
Under a fridge or under a cabinet?
100%. Fridge, cabinet, closet, somewhere that's discreet and out of the way, so that we've gone into the job and we've done those samples where they were talking very dark colors, and I've done the samples on the floor, and all of a sudden at the last minute we're like, hey, can you keep it looking like this? And so it's kind of a hard one to walk back that way, and that's as a contractor thinking, sample it out first, get the preliminary color first, and if we're good to go on that, then we can do the sample on the floor.
Perfect. Another thing that we're facing in today's industry is VOCs, right? It's a huge issue in a lot of states. This Bona Red Out is actually 0 VOC. It covers 450 to 650 square feet. That is including both parts, obviously. So, and if going back to the dilution, you'll want to dilute part 1 and part 2 equally. Okay, don't just dilute part 1, don't dilute part 2. You definitely want to dilute them both. Any other questions right now, guys?
When you're diluting, is that stuff you just got to kind of play with to
Yeah,
see what it does?
exactly that. You're just kind of adding water to be like to see the intensity that you want. If you're like, wow, that did way too much to this lightly red oak floor, go 2 to 1, right? If it did too much, maybe consider going 1 to 4. Any other questions on red out, guys? I think our timer's probably getting close.
We're good.
It's looking like it. Okay, cool, awesome. So Mike's gonna actually apply part 2 right now. Part 2 is the neutralizer. You're gonna see that part 1 color was kind of like a milky. Part 2 is gonna be almost like a water looking clear. And you can use the same applicators, but just don't mix the applicators, right? So you can use the same part 1 applicators from part 1 last job. You can use the same part 2 applicators from part 2 last job.
Size of the applicator,
One more time.
4-inch snap roller.
Oh, in terms of the applicator, recommend 1/4-inch snap roller tends to work best that we found so far. I've also used the 3/8 inch, and that works just fine as well. A question that we usually get that surprisingly hasn't been asked yet is what does this do on other species, right? What does it do on like a walnut or a Brazilian cherry? And we actually prepared a little sample for you guys on some walnut here. While Mike's getting that part 2 ready, I'll show you. Up here, nothing has been done on this top third. The bottom third has been treated with red out, only one application of it. If you do 2, it would intensify it a little bit more. Any other questions regarding that, guys? Sir?
Well, yeah, so I'm assuming you'll probably show us, but
Yes, sir.
On top of this, you seal it with...
Correct. Great question. Jason asked, what goes on top? Does it have to be a sealer? Does it have to be a stain? Does it have to be a penetrating oil? Yes, yes, and yes. It can be anything within what we found our Bona system. So our Bona penetrating oil, our Bona dry fast stain, or one of our Bona sealers. It works just fine with all of them. Sir? One more time, sorry? How's the cleaning? I can't hear you, I'm sorry. One second.
How's the titanium on the wood react over time? Like when you have like sections and they have a lot of light to it and the color change?
No. Gotcha. Gentleman asked, how does the tannins react over time? So obviously you all are seeing this right now. How does it react over time? We have not seen any changes at all, be it light discrepancies or anything like that. Haven't seen a change over time from that white oak look that you're getting right now. Anything else, guys? If not, we're gonna, once Mike gets finished here, we'll move to the Bona diamond sanding plates. You can really see that coloration start to come back into the wood that we were initially looking for. He'll hold it up here in a second.
I noticed you give the little guy that heavy work. I'm joking to you, dude.
Ugh, man, getting old. So you can really see that those the pink in there really dissipate. And again, this can be sanded off with like an 80 grit. So if your customer thinks they want that and then they see it and they're like, that is not what I wanted. No harm, no foul. A couple more minutes and you're ready to go. All right, here, Mike, drop this down. All right, so that's Bona red out. Next, we'll be talking about the Bona diamond sanding plates, which I will pass around. This was, it's going to be a 6-inch diamond segment that works perfectly with the Bona power drive. Really good for UV cured floors, aluminum oxide floors. You can even take off that carpet adhesive and leftover stuff like that with these diamond sanding plates. Right about a 36 grit on these. What's unique about these is the scratch. While it does get out that pre-finished floor or pre-finished finish that was on the floor prior, you can actually go right to your regular sanding process, okay? Again, think about that as species and job dependent. If you're working with a hickory or maple, maybe consider, kind of just going the regular steps, 36, 40, etc. But if you're a 50, 80, 120 person, you can do these, hit it with 50, 80, and then 120 buff. Okay? Do we have any questions? How many of you guys have used these already? Anyone? One right here? Right on. Anyone else used anything like this? Or you guys are going to use it after. And we'll even let you guys come on up and test it out here. But for right now, I'm actually going to let Mike rip this panel apart and kind of do a live demo for you guys. Ready? So it does go on the Bona power drive. That being said, you don't want to use weights with it just because it could overheat that adhesion on the back. We found that these diamond sanding plates are going to last about 5,000 to 10,000 square feet. Again, consider that a technical note. We've had contractors say, hey, mine have lasted 15,000, 20,000 square feet. I just can't say that because what we found, the majority obviously is 5,000 to 10,000, right? Really, really nice. I mean, you guys can see, I actually did a job in October and I had 40 grit, our ceramic, 2 weights on the power drive and was not even touching it. I got this in and was in and out of the job way, way faster than I probably could have been. Do you guys have any? Yes, ma'am. Does it take the bevel out? Yes, it does. The size of the bevel, you might have to hit it a couple times. The process that we like to do though anyway is go down and then come back in that same pass, as we all know. So that alone usually does a pretty decent job.
When we want to make sure that before we're worried about taking that bevel out, that we have enough meat, enough face to be able to sand that bevel out. So you want to take sure that we do a sample, against a wall, look in a vent, to make sure that our wear layer is thick enough for us to remove that bevel.
Any other questions or anything like that with this? Does anyone want to get up and try it? Ryan.
For a buffer, do you guys have smaller plates available? Or
Great question.
For the power?
Great question. He asked, for a buffer, do we have smaller plates? Well, see, the buffer's RPMs are too quick. That being said, you can get a hand tool, like a hand power tool, knock it down to about 800 to 1,000 RPM, and you can run this baby on the edges all day.
So, for example, you could probably take a Rotax sander, Festool Rotax sander, turn it all the way down, and use it to get your edges along the wall. Or if somebody had stair treads that were done with it, you could do the treads as well.
Something to note about these, because of how much work they are doing, they can get hot, and the adhesion, like I was talking about earlier, can come off. So we recommend about every 250 to 300 square feet, just take a quick break, let them breathe and kind of cool down a little bit, because they do get warm. Any other questions regarding the diamond, sir? Can you speak up a little bit? Sorry. I don't speak loud either.
For uneven floors,
Uneven.
can we use the interface pads?
The interface pads on the back of this, I'll let the contractor.
I would give it a try and see how it works, but I have talked with folks, just because there's so much heat that builds up with these plates, I've talked with contractors that use the interface pad, and it helps to dissipate some of that heat. So rather than we recommend every like 200 to 300 feet to give these plates some time to cool off. He says he goes 300 or 400 feet with the interface pads on, because that 1/4 inch or 1/8 of an inch cushion helps to cool those pads off. So yes, definitely on an uneven floor, I would give it a try, but I think it would be fine to do that.
And like is with the coverage rate, how we've had contractors get about 15 to 20,000 square feet. I've also heard the contractors going way more than the square feet that Mr. Dittmer just said, and being fine. I can't advise that, but any other questions? Who wants to come up and run it? Let's get someone up here to run it. You guys can see the ease of it.
Good morning, everybody. In about 5 minutes, we're going to start the regional instructors demo here too on the exhibit hall right side. The regional instructors
press one button
demo.
and then pull the trigger. Thank you guys.